Welcome to the Learning Academy. Today we'll be discussing the International Space Station. The International Space Station is the largest, the most complex, and the most expensive object ever placed in space. The International Space Station is about 357.6 feet long. The International Space Station gives astronauts a lot of room to stretch out. It is made up of hundreds of major and minor components, and the International Space Station is the largest manned object ever placed in outer space. The International Space Station has had occupants since November 2000. In total, 240 individuals from 19 countries have visited the International Space Station. An international crew of 6 persons live and work while traveling at a speed of 5 miles per second and actually orbiting the Earth every 90 minutes. It's said that in 24 hours, the International Space Station makes 16 orbits of the Earth. That means it travels through 16 sunrises and sunsets. The living and working space on the International Space Station is larger than a 6-bedroom house. There are 6 sleeping quarters, 2 bathrooms, a gym, and a 360-degree view bay window. Astronauts on the International Space Station are constantly working out. They work out at least 2 hours a day to ensure that they maintain their muscle and bone mass. The 2 hours exercise on a daily basis helps to prevent the loss of bone mass and muscle mass that happens as a result of the lack of gravity in space. The various parts of the International Space Station were delivered via 42 assembly flights. 37 were done on US space shuttles and 5 were done on Russian Proton and Soyuz rockets. International Space Station has a solar array wingspan of 240 feet. It is basically the same size as that of an Airbus A380. Astronauts on the International Space Station, as well as cosmonauts, have conducted 221 spacewalks, and they're still counting. Of course, the space station required construction and it needs maintenance, and upgrades have to be done. Work on the construction of the International Space Station began in December 1998. SpaceX is not the only cargo spacecraft that delivers cargo and supplies to the International Space Station. Other spacecrafts include Grumman's Cygnus, JAXA's HTV, and the Russian Progress. 2,700 research investigations have been done by researchers from more than 103 countries aboard the International Space Station. The International Space Station was constructed by the United States, Russia, Canada, Japan, Belgium, Brazil, Denmark, France, Germany, Italy, Netherlands, Norway, Spain, Sweden, Switzerland, and the United Kingdom. International Space Station is the most expensive object ever built. The cost of the International Space Station has been estimated at over $120 billion. Surprisingly, there are only 2 bathrooms on the entire space station. The International Space Station is home to both humans and animals. Computers on the International Space Station have also been infected by viruses. Cargo spacecrafts visit the International Space Station to drop off food, fuel, and other supplies. The International Space Station is the 3rd brightest object in the night sky, after the Moon and Venus. When the International Space Station is passing by, stargazers have described it as being a fast-moving airplane. There is a plan in place to deorbit the International Space Station in 2024. The plan is to add the leftover of the ISS to the new Russian Obsek. Electrical system on the International Space Station includes 8 miles of water. Astronauts on the International Space Stations eat 3 meals per day. There are no chairs or eating areas on the International Space Stations, so astronauts must stabilize themselves and float while they eat. Oxygen on the International Space Station comes from a process known as electrolysis. This process involves using an electrical current generated from the station's solar panels to split water molecules into hydrogen and oxygen. The future of the International Space Station is not always clear. Whilst they believe that it can remain operational until 2024, the various key partners in the International Space Station also surmise that it could continue until 2028. Also, some say that it may be deorbited or recycled for future space stations that will be placed in orbit around the Earth. National Space Station crew members are assisted by mission control centers in Houston and Moscow, and there's also a payload control center in Huntsville. The International Mission Control Centers support the space station from Japan, Canada, and Europe. The International Space Station can also be controlled from mission control centers in Houston and Moscow. The 2020 plans for the International Space Station include visits from the SpaceX Crew Dragon and Boeing CST-100. These visits from these spacecrafts are expected to increase the number of crew members that are currently on the International Space Station. Astronauts that are aboard the International Space Station spend most of their time performing experiments and maintenance work. At least 2 hours of the day is allocated to exercise and personal care. Occasionally, they go out for spacewalks. They also conduct media school events for outreach purposes, and they also do social media posts. Like, comment, share, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Please leave your comments below and let us know which one of the facts in relation to the International Space Station you find the most fascinating. Thanks for watching.